It is time to rank the episodes of the final season of BoJack Horseman. Given that Netflix was only willing to give Raphael Bob-Waksberg one more season, this season has more episodes than usual. This includes 16 episodes compared to the standard 12 episodes. Now, with that out of the way, it's time to start with number 16. The 8th episode ends up at the bottom of my list as I can't stand reporter Paige Sinclair, especially the first time I watched season 6. Now that I know what to expect, it isn't too bad, but the episode itself is also nothing too special. What is nice is that we get to follow the side characters of the show, like Gina and Kelsey, and see how their lives have been affected by the actions of BoJack. This makes for an engaging episode the first time you watch it, but upon repeated viewings it lacks the rewatchability that the other episodes of this season do have. In sunk cost and all that, we get to follow Max and Paige as they question Mr. Peanut Butter about BoJack, while BoJack, Diane, Princess Carolyn and Todd try to piece together what their end goal is. In this episode, Joey Pogo also makes an appearance, which unfortunately is another character that was introduced this season that I am not too fond of. That, in combination with the lack of anything to stand out from the other episodes this season, is why it ends up at the 15th spot. In episode 5, Mr. Peanut Butter is hated because the story went viral that he cheated on Pickles. Diane struggles with her writing process and BoJack has to face the fact that he has to leave rehab, which ends up badly as Dr. Champ ends up drinking vodka and relapsing, leaving BoJack forced to take care of him until he sobers up. The 1994 flashback with Danny Bananas is easily the most interesting aspect of this episode, where we meet Herb's replacement and learn that Sharona was fired as someone had to take the fall for the fact that Sarah Lynn ended up drinking BoJack's vodka. This episode is filled with some funny moments, but the majority of the episode is filled with emotional and engaging plot points that will keep you engaged from the start to the end of the episode. Princess Carolyn has to take care of lots of things in the second episode of the season, thus she never has any time to relax and take a break. This is visualized beautifully where we see multiple Princess Carolyns being busy on screen, but in all honesty, other than this unique aspect, I don't find this episode all that entertaining, though it is great to see how Princess Carolyn is able to deal with it all. In episode 6 we finally see Todd's father as they try to get a kidney for his mother, while BoJack tries to help Dr. Champ get sober as he feels responsible for the fact that he is drinking alcohol again. This is another episode that is really entertaining but not as memorable as episodes higher on this list. Diane and Guy film items for a girl cruise and end up getting wrapped up in a story revolving around the giant company White Whale. In this episode they take center stage and it is interesting to see how they become closer throughout the episodes and they have a great chemistry together. In Good Damage, Diane struggles to write her memoir, even while taking antidepressants. Meanwhile, Max and Paige visit Penny to ask her some questions about Sarah Lynn. What makes this episode so interesting is that we get to see Diane's thought process and how she sees herself, making for a very engaging episode where you really feel like you get to know her better, even in the 6th season. Now that everyone hates BoJack after his revealing TV interview, he has to rely on Vance Wagner as almost all of his friends have abandoned him. It is interesting to see how BoJack deals with his new public image, and the episode ends with one of the most memorable moments of the season, where he reads Hollyhock's letter, realizing that she has cut him from her life completely. With this realization, BoJack relapses and has another alcoholic drink. This ending leaves such a lasting impression that I always have to sit for a few minutes to process it all, even upon rewatching this episode. In the 9th episode, it is clear that Hollyhock has learned about the events that took place in LA from Pete, as she puts a barrier between her and BoJack, indicating that she wants to see him less and less. And of course she has every right to do so, but for us as the viewer, we know that BoJack has moved past his toxic behavior and is now a truly great teacher, and seeing him teach and help his students is really heartwarming. And I wish we could have seen more of this aspect before things began tumbling down when he gets a call from Charlotte. When Angela Diaz contacts BoJack, we get some interesting conversations, where Angela reveals that she was bluffing when she told BoJack to not walk away when they wanted to fire Herb. This makes for a really engaging episode where you wonder what else you will learn. The ending leaves a chilling impression where we get to see BoJack's audition tape where he is still full of wonder, which ends with a reflection of the current BoJack watching the TV screen. After the Sarah Lynn story reaches the public, BoJack has to give an interview on live TV. The interview goes perfectly with everyone loving BoJack afterwards. Unfortunately, BoJack slips back to his old tendencies and likes all the positive attention he is getting and decides to do another interview. At this point, Paige has convinced Biscuits Braxby to do a more gripping interview and ask BoJack more difficult questions. After this interview, it's clear that BoJack's life will change forever when the interview airs on TV. In the face of depression, BoJack travels around the country to visit his friends and allow them to meet the new BoJack. This is enjoyable to follow as BoJack finally has a positive impact on others, with the highlight for me easily being the part where he gives Mr. Peanut Butter his crossover episode. The first episode revolves around BoJack as he goes to rehab, while there are also flashbacks that show times BoJack drank alcohol, and it's sad to see that it cuts back further and further, showing he already drank some alcohol while he was still very little. This episode does an excellent job cutting between the past and present, while BoJack struggles with rehab. The 4th episode revolves around Mr. Peanut Butter and Pickles as he tells her he cheated on her with Diane. Despite this serious topic, this is easily the funniest episode of the season, as it is hilarious to see how everyone at the surprise wedding tries their hardest to remain undetected while Mr. Peanut Butter and Pickles are arguing. Nice while it lasted does the impossible and manages to wrap things up in the final episode of the show. In this episode, BoJack gets some intimate moments with Mr. Peanut Butter, Todd, Princess Carolyn and Diane, which allows us as the viewer to enjoy their presence one last time and say goodbye to them. I've never managed to watch this episode without getting emotional, but that's because I don't fight it and instead embrace the fact that the show has been able to make me feel so connected to these characters that the fact of never seeing them again puts me to tears. The ending where BoJack realizes that this is the last time him and Diane meet is so well done, ending with a fitting song of Mr. Blue by Catherine Feeney. The highlight of not just this season but the entire show, The View from Halfway Down, claims the #1 spot. This episode contains some great discussions about the meaning of life and what it means to be selfless, as characters who have died make an appearance in BoJack's dream. There are so many hidden details within this episode that every time I rewatch this episode I discover something new. The ending leaves a haunting impression as BoJack realizes his fate and that he is actually drowning in the pool. This is easily the best penultimate episode of the show, which is why there was no doubt in my mind that I had to give the #1 spot to this episode. So that was my ranking of the episodes of the 6th season of BoJack Horseman. Let me know if you agree with my ranking, and if not, how would you rank these episodes? Thank you for watching, bye bye.